Hey guys, this is English for Wednesday of week 5. The learning intention for today is to understand how to compare and contrast two different texts, which is the same as yesterday. To be successful, you must read two texts and comprehend the characters, settings, and events. Also, locating similarities and differences between the characters, setting, and events in the text. The story that I'm going to read you today is Cinderella. Once upon a time, a girl named Cinderella lived with her stepmother and two stepsisters. Poor Cinderella had to work hard all day long so the others could rest. It was she who had to wake up each morning when it was still dark and cold to start the fire. It was she who cooked the meals. It was she who kept the fire going. The poor girl could not stay clean from all the ashes and cinders by the fire. What a mess, her two sisters laughed, and that is why they called her Cinderella. One day, big news came to town. The king and queen were going to have a ball. It was time for the prince to find a bride. All the young ladies in the land were invited to come. They were wild with joy. They would wear the most beautiful gown and fix their hair extra nice. Maybe the prince would like them. At Cinderella's house, she now had extra work to do. She had to make two brand new gowns for her stepsisters. "Faster!" shouted one stepsister. "You call that a dress?" screamed the other. "Oh dear," said Cinderella. "When can I—" The stepmother marched into the room. "When can you what?" "Well," said the girl, "when will I have time to make my own dress for the ball?" "You?" yelled the stepmother. "Who said you were going to the ball?" "What a laugh," said one stepsister. "Such a mess." They pointed at Cinderella. All of them laughed. Cinderella said to herself, "When they look at me, maybe they see a mess, but I am not that way, and if I could, I would go to the ball." Soon the time came for the stepmother and stepsisters to leave for the big party. Their fine carriage came to the door. The stepmother and stepsisters hopped inside, and off they went. "Goodbye," called Cinderella. "Have a good time." But her stepmother and stepsisters did not turn around to see her. "Ah me," said Cinderella sadly. The carriage rode down the street. She said aloud, "I wish I could go to the ball too." Then poof! All of a sudden in front of her was a fairy. "You called?" said the fairy. "Did I?" asked Cinderella. "Who are you?" "Why, your fairy godmother, of course. I know your wish, and I have come to grant it." "But," said Cinderella, "my wish is impossible." "Excuse me," said the fairy godmother in a huff. "Did I not just show up out of thin air?" "Yes, you did," said Cinderella. "Then let me be the one to say what is possible or not." "Well, you know I want to go to the ball, too, but look at me." She looked down at her dirty clothes. "You do look a bit of a mess, child," said the fairy godmother. "Even if I had something nice to wear," said the girl, "I would have no way to get there." "Dear me, all of that is possible," said the fairy. With that, she tapped her wand on Cinderella's head. At once, Cinderella was all clean. She was dressed in a beautiful blue gown. Her hair was set up high on her head inside a golden band. "This is wonderful," said Cinderella. "Who said I was done?" said the fairy godmother. She tapped her wand again. At once a beautiful carriage came to be with the driver and 4 white horses. "Am I dreaming?" asked Cinderella, looking around her. "It is as real can be," said the fairy godmother. "But there is one thing you must know." "What's that?" "All of this only lasts until midnight. Tonight at the stroke of midnight it will all be over. Everything will go back to how it was before." "Then I must be sure to leave the ball before midnight," exclaimed Cinderella. "Good idea," said the fairy godmother. She stepped back. "My work is done." And with that the fairy godmother was gone. "Coming?" called the carriage driver. Cinderella stepped into the carriage and they were off. Over at the ball the prince did not know what to think. "Why do you have that sad look on your face?" the queen asked her son. "Look around you. You could not ask for finer maidens than these." "I know, mother," said the prince. Yet he knew something was wrong. He had met many of the young women, yet after he said "hello" one by one, he could find nothing more to say. "Look!" Someone pointed to the front door. Who is that? All heads turned. Who was that lovely maiden stepping down the stairs? She held her head tall and looked as if she belonged, but no one knew her. There is something about her, said the prince to himself. He walked over to Cinderella, asked her if they had met before, and asked her to dance. I am pleased to meet you now, said Cinderella with a bow. I feel as if I know you, said the prince, but of course that is impossible. Many things are possible, said Cinderella, if you wish them to be true. The prince felt a leap in his heart. He and Cinderella danced. When the song was over, they danced again. And then they danced again, and yet again. Soon the other maidens at the ball grew jealous. Why is he dancing all the time with her? They said. How rude. But all the prince could see was Cinderella. They laughed and talked, and they danced some more. In fact, they danced for so long that Cinderella did not see the clock. Suddenly, the clock began to strike midnight. Cinderella looked up. Oh my, she cried out. It's almost midnight. Why does that matter? Said the prince. I must go, said Cinderella. The clock continued to chime. But we just met, said the prince. Why leave now? I must go, said Cinderella. She ran to the steps. Goodbye, said Cinderella. Up the stairs she ran. Please stop for a moment, called the prince. Oh dear, she said as one glass slipper fell off her foot on the stair. But Cinderella kept running. As the clock chimed, the prince again called for Cinderella to wait. Goodbye, Cinderella turned one last time. Then she rushed out the door. Dong! The clock was quiet. It was midnight. Wait, called the prince. He picked up her glass slipper and rushed out the door. He looked around but could not see her blue dress anywhere. This is all I have left from her, he said, looking down at the glass slipper. He saw that it was made in a special way to fit a foot like none other. Somewhere there is the other glass slipper, he said, and when I find it, I will find her too. Then I will ask her to be my bride. From hut to hut, from house to house went the prince. One young woman after another tried to fit her foot inside the glass slipper, but none could fit. And so the prince moved on. At last the prince came to Cinderella's house. He is coming, called one of the stepsisters as they looked out the window. At the door, she screamed, the other stepsister. Quick, yelled the stepmother, get ready. One of you must be the one to fit your foot in that slipper, no matter what. The prince knocked. The stepmother flew open the door. Come in, she said. I have two lovely daughters for you to see. The first stepsister tried to place her foot in the glass slipper. She tried hard, but it just would not fit. But then the second stepsister tried to fit her foot inside. She tried and tried with all her might too, but no dice. Are there no other young women in this house? Said the prince. None, said the stepmother. Then I must go, said the prince. Maybe there is one more, said Cinderella, stepping into the room. I thought you said there were no other young women here, said the prince. None who matter, said the stepmother in a hiss. Come here, said the prince. Cinderella stepped up to him. The prince got down on one knee and tried the glass slipper on her foot. It fit perfectly. Then, from her pocket, Cinderella took out something. It was the other glass slipper. I knew it, he cried. You are the one. What? Shouted a stepsister. Not her, screamed the other stepsister. This cannot be, yelled the stepmother. But it was too late. The prince knew that Cinderella was the one. He looked into her eyes. He did not see the cinders in her hair or the ashes on her face. I have found you, he said. I have found you, said Cinderella. And so Cinderella and the prince were married, and they lived happily ever after. So now that we have read the text, the task for today is to answer the questions below using the information from the text. Number 1, where was the setting in Cinderella? Explain how you know. Number 2, how was Cinderella described in text 2? Number 3, list descriptive noun groups and verb groups that were used in the text in the table below. Now, if you forget what noun groups and verb groups are, as I said yesterday, you can go back to the videos from last week and they will describe what a noun group and what a verb group is. The next task is to identify the similarities and differences between the texts, characters, settings, and events. Do this by completing the graphic organizer below. You may need to look back to lesson 5 text to help you. So if you have a look here, the first column going down says text 1 Cinder Sam. In those boxes there, you must identify the characters, settings, and events within Cinder Sam. The column on the right side says text 2 Cinderella Traditional Tale. There you must identify the characters, setting, and the events from the Cinderella story. In the middle, we have a similarities column. So if there are any similar characters between both texts, if there is a similar setting or part of the setting, or if there are any similar events between both texts, that is where you place it in that column in the middle. The last part says complete the sentences below using information from your table. Number 1, the most striking similarity between text 1 and text 2 is, so you must go back through the text and find that. Number 2, there are several ways in which text 1 and text 2 are different, including, so just name a couple of different ways that there were differences between the texts. Number 3, the main difference between the characters is, so identify any differences between the characters in both Cinder Sam and in Cinderella. Thank you guys.